Hi, I'm Brooke with MeetRx Successful Stories. And today I'm really happy to be here with Dr. Phil Ovadia, who's a surgeon in Florida, a cardiac surgeon. And he's going to share with us his journey with the carnivore diet. Hi there, Dr. Phil.
Hi, Brooke. Thanks for having me on.
Nice to meet you. And well, let's just get started. I'm really curious. What brought you to the carnivore diet? What were things like for you before?
So I came to the carnivore diet and kind of low carb in general because of my lifelong struggle with obesity. I was overweight and obese for as long as I can remember as a child. And that was really despite the fact that my, I would say my parents, really did a good job of following the guidelines. I grew up in a household that we never really had any sugar around. We drank diet soda. We ate low fat. We always used margarine instead of butter. And, I have a brother who's a type 1 diabetic, so we never had sugar or sugary cereals or anything in the house. And despite all that, I don't remember a time in my life that I wasn't overweight. And I would say, as I continued to go and, into high school and college, just kind of got more and more overweight. And then I started medical school and continued to be overweight. And, you're a doctor and you're supposed to know how to make people healthy. And I couldn't really even make myself healthy, although, I was young and, in my 20s and 30s at that time, so you don't really think about it that much. But as I got older and my wife and I had children and I found myself with 2 young kids and a heart surgeon, and I'm taking care of all these people with heart disease. And most of them were overweight and diabetic, and, I knew all the risk factors and really started to, kind of question things. And I had lost weight a number of times doing kind of the calorie counting and the low fat, but was never able to make it last for a long period of time. And a couple of sort of fortuitous events happened. The first was my wife, after she had the children, really had really bad heartburn, and at some point actually acupuncturist that she was seeing recommended to her that she go gluten-free. And this was probably 2015, before, gluten-free had really caught on, so there weren't a lot of the alternative products. And quite frankly, I was skeptical, but being the supportive husband I am, I said, I'll give it a try with you. And so we went gluten-free, and, that usually meant not eating bread when we were out to dinner, and, not having bread at home a lot. And, it kind of was lowish carb, I would say. And I noticed that I felt a lot better. My energy levels were better, and I think I started to lose a little bit of weight. And then a few months later, I happened to be at a medical conference of cardiac surgeons, and the guest speaker that year was Gary Taubes. And he had just, the case against sugar had just come out, and I heard him talk, and something just clicked, quite honestly. And the thing that I remember most from that talk was him doing his analogy of, he said, look around this room, and there were probably 2,000 surgeons in the room. And he said, imagine you're standing at the back of the room and someone pokes their head in the door and says, why are there so many people in this room? And you say to them, well, because more people have walked in than have walked out. And he said, well, technically that's true. It doesn't really explain anything. And basically he said, that's what calorie in, calorie out is, Well, technically it's true that people get overweight because they take in more calories than they burn. It doesn't really tell us why are they taking in the calories and why aren't they burning the calories. And, he got in. So, I read one of his books on the plane ride home, and his other 2 books, within about a week after that. and really, dove into the low carb. And then, it
So
went
that was
through,
like a life-changing moment,
that
that
was
talk.
really like life-changing moment,
Nice.
that talk. And, and as I really got into low carb, I lost a lot of weight and felt great. And, I kind of went through, various iterations. It was, keto and all of that. And then a little over a year ago, March of 2019, or probably February 2019, I heard Sean, on the Joe Rogan show, as I know many have gotten, that's how many got to carnivore. And quite frankly, I said, that sounds a little crazy. But, he was a surgeon, he was a physician, and, I started looking into it more, and I said, well, maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. Let me try it for 30 days. So March of 2019, I went carnivore. And prior to that, I was very low carb. I mean, I was well under 20 grams of carbs a day. But within very quickly, I noticed two major differences between carnivore and low carb. The first was when I was eating a little bit of carb, still, I had carb cravings all the time. And it was a constant battle to, not go back to the carbs. And I would go on sort of carb binges, I call them, where, I would say, oh, it's Friday night, I'm going to have dessert with the family. And, then it became all weekend of eating carbs. And, then you really had to struggle to get back on the bandwagon Monday morning. Uh, that was a struggle for me. And the second thing I noticed, so that went away. Once I stopped eating carbs, I would say within a couple of days, I really had no problems. And if the kids were eating carbs, I could not eat it. And for the first time in my life, or I could say, I had one bite of the cake and then I said, that's enough. And I didn't even want it anymore. And the second thing I noticed was the inflammation. So I had struggled with plantar fasciitis for probably 3 or 4 years. And every morning when I got out of bed, I put my right foot on the ground and it hurt for 15 minutes until I, kind of walked around and stretched it out. And I had done all the exercises and stretches, and I had stopped running and changed shoes and everything I could do, and I could not get it to go away. And my third morning on carnivore, I stepped out of bed and it didn't hurt, and it has not come back since.
That's crazy.
And the few, the times that I do eat something, eat some sugar or have a piece of birthday cake, I feel it in my right foot. It's unbelievable.
Like the next day, you feel it the next
Yeah,
day?
the next day I'll, and it won't be nearly as bad as I had it, but it's enough of a reminder that but it's just amazing, how that sets off inflammation in your body. And for me, it's plantar fasciitis. For other people, it's heart disease or bowel problems. But it really is amazing. And I think carnivore, if nothing else, just eliminates the bad stuff. And that's,
Yeah,
it's
it's
really,
like the plantar fasciitis. Fasciitis is like a little gift for you.
yeah, almost. It's my sort of reminder. But so all in all, I've between low carb and carnivore, I've lost about 100 pounds. The other thing I noticed about carnivore is, I haven't necessarily lost more weight on carnivore, but my body composition has significantly changed. My body fat percentage continues to go down, and I'm just, the leanest I've been. I wear, the size of pants that I wear now is a size that I don't ever remember wearing, probably, when I was a teenager. But I could tell you, I've never bought, the size pants that I buy now as an adult. And like I said, that's really on the scale. I haven't lost any weight in the year that I've been carnivore, but my body composition continues to improve.
That's so great. And what about your temperament or your cognition or your
Yeah,
ability
I
to
would say
do long? I would think that as a surgeon, you must have some long hours.
I do have some long hours, and I think I'm much better at tolerating that these days. I mean, as you go through surgical training, you get used to long hours. When I was a resident and I was in my 20s, uh, I could tolerate it, but it was hard and I was tired all the time. And I can tell you the last couple of years, and especially the last year on carnivore, is truly the best I've ever felt in my life. And I can go all day without eating. I can fast all day if I need to, if I'm in a long surgery or multiple surgeries back to back. And it really does not affect me at all. And I don't get tired in the afternoons anymore. I don't need afternoon naps like I used to. I don't need, the coffee in the afternoon like I used to, or any of that. It's the energy level and the mental clarity are certainly two other benefits of this way of living.
Yeah, I would think that surgery is pretty physically demanding. You're on your feet and you're having to maneuver things around. Do you do other exercise or anything recreational?
Yeah, so interestingly, one of the other things I would say since I've gone carnivore is, if anything, I've cut back on my exercise. So about the time that I started low carb, probably a year or so afterwards, I did start running, which was the first time in my life, and I had gotten to the point that I trained for and ran a half marathon at one point. But honestly, I can't say I ever enjoyed it. I did it because I thought I needed to do it as part of the whole weight loss thing. And part of the realization, with going carnivore or along my low carb journey is, as I did come to that realization that, the exercise doesn't really help with weight loss. It's got good mental effects. It's good for relaxation but it really doesn't help with weight loss. And I would say over the past year, I've focused more on, doing kind of body weight exercises and that type of stuff. And, I still occasionally run, but not as much as I used to. And like I said, despite that, I've maintained my weight and improved my body composition. Despite, overall, I'm certainly exercising a lot less than I did at other times in my life.
Good job. That sounds great. You have a family.
Yes.
Do they eat carnivore?
They're certainly low carb. So my wife is low carb. She's not carnivore, but she eats some veggies essentially, and she likes them, and she can tolerate them fine. My kids, we're not real strict with the kids, but we certainly, there are subtle influences. They without prompting order their burgers when we're out to eat without buns, and I would say compared to most kids, they're low carb, but they go to birthday parties, they have cake, they have dessert and ice cream, and we don't make a big deal about it. I just try and I kind of try to get them to notice how they feel, and what food makes them feel good and what food makes them feel full, and how other foods don't. And they start to notice that they're 7 and 9, so they're not quite there yet, but like I said, I just kind of try and subtly influence them. But they do sometimes roll their eyes and say, "Oh, daddy's eating just meat again."
When you were low carb, um, what were you eating? Were you eating a lot of meat, or were you eating fat bombs, keto
Yeah,
stuff?
so I went through all of that. I mean, I will always, I've always enjoyed eating, steaks and burgers, and so, although honestly, there was I went through about a 3 month period where I tried vegan, uh, and I think most of us have, and it was honestly the worst I've felt in my life. But I did try it at one point. But yeah, I've never been averse to eating meat. The biggest sort of hurdle for me to overcome, mentally for carnivore was one, realizing that fruits and veggies are not essential to your diet, and you can get all the nutrition you need from animal products. And then obviously, as a heart surgeon, the concern about cholesterol was a big one, and going carnivore led me to discover a lot of the, you know, in medical school, it was sort of an undisputed fact that cholesterol caused heart disease, and cholesterol came from eating fat, and both of those turn out probably not to be true, or there's certainly uh, controversy surrounding both of them. And I'm now very comfortable with the fact of eating high fat. And I'm also very comfortable with the fact that having an elevated LDL cholesterol level does not correlate to having heart disease. And so I did find that my LDL cholesterol did go up when I started carnivore. It has kind of plateaued and started to come back down after about 8 months or so. Um, my other cholesterol markers have all improved. My HDL has gone up significantly. My triglycerides have gone down significantly. So overall, based on blood work, I'm confident that I'm at lower risk for heart disease. And I've had a coronary artery calcium scan done, and I had a 0. So more so, that convinces me that I'm at low risk for heart disease. And I see no danger in continuing to eat meat. The amount of fat I eat kind of has gone all over the place. Like I said, prior to going carnivore, I was, kind of keto and would do the fat bombs and, the bulletproof coffee and all that. When I started carnivore, I probably was still on the fattier side. Um, and now I just, honestly, I don't even think about it that much. I don't add extra fat necessarily. But when I get a nice ribeye steak, I eat all the fat that comes with it. And I enjoy it. And put a little bit of butter on it. But, I don't really go out of my way to get extra fat anymore.
Do you eat fatty cuts of meat generally, or what is it? What do
Yeah, I
you?
would say I'm, kind of moderate, in terms of ground beef, I usually go with like the 85-15, 80, sometimes 80-20, depending on what's available. And then, yeah, I do like ribeyes and New York strips with a little bit of a fat cap as opposed to a filet. Um, and honestly, I don't eat any poultry anymore. I just honestly just don't find it appealing. I do eat a lot of seafood. So, tuna, salmon, we have here in Florida, we have a lot of grouper. It's kind of the local fish, but I've started eating sardines and anchovies. So, maybe it's more of the fattier fish, but, and then I eat a lot of eggs.
Do you eat dairy?
I don't avoid dairy, but I also don't eat it that much. I never did in my life. I just never have been a big, most of the milk I've had in my life was in cereal. And, cheese, I can take it or leave it. I'll eat it sometimes. And, if we're out to eat or we're at a party, and, oftentimes the cheese platter is, the most carnivorous thing I find to eat. I have no problems eating it, but I don't like actively make it part of my diet.
So you have a pretty standard, pretty broad, basic carnivore diet with animal foods in general.
Yeah, and in terms of the whole nose to tail spectrum, also, I don't, I don't go out of my way to get organ meats, but if they're available, I'll eat them. I'll eat some liver. I've eaten heart. Actually, I do like heart. It just you don't see it on the menu very often. Every once in a while, I'll order it as part of some of my meat orders and have some of that. But I don't go out of my way. I call my diet well-rounded carnivore in the sense that I eat, beef and lamb and seafood and eggs. But I wouldn't call myself necessarily nose to tail carnivore.
And do you eat twice a day or OMAD or?
Most days I would say it turns out to be once a day.
Mhm.
And for me, that's usually, dinner at the end of the day. And really, again, it's not that I'm actively fasting. It's just that that's when I find myself only being hungry most days once a day. On the weekends when I'm not working, sometimes I'll do breakfast, and dinner. But, honestly, 3 meals a day at this point would be like overstuffing myself.
Are you a coffee drinker?
I am a coffee drinker, and I drink it black. And actually, the one thing I do put in my coffee is salt. I find
Uh-huh.
it a way to get salt, and I enjoy the taste. I've come to enjoy the taste of salted coffee, so
I
I
have to
put salt
try
on
that.
it. I am pretty heavy on the salt. I think one of the mistakes we've made nutritionally and in medicine is pushing the low salt, and actually that probably is hurting us in many regards. So I do liberally salt all my food, and like I said, I put salt in my coffee.
Do you have to also take electrolytes or pretty much salt, using salt as your?
Just the salt. Yeah, I don't take any other. I don't take any supplements. I don't take any other electrolytes. The only exception is there have been time. Uh, so there was a period after I started carnivore that I was doing a lot of extended fasting. I was doing 72-hour fasts on a regular basis, and even up to 5 days. And I would take electrolytes on my fasting days. But I don't really do that much anymore. I'll do like probably quarterly. I'll do like a 48-hour fast or so. Um, but even then, I actually, I just put salt in my coffee when I'm fasting, and I don't worry
Did,
about the rest of it anymore.
did you ever get the Charlie horses, those cramps? Like,
Yeah, there have been times during the whole low carb and even carnivore journey that I did get them, and at various times I've tried salt and magnesium, and I don't know if either of those honestly helped, but I mean they helped at the time, but I don't, people always ask me about it. Now when I advise people on starting a carnivore diet, or if they're transitioning to low carb, I do recommend that they take supplement. I usually tell them potassium, sodium, and magnesium while you're starting, because I think during the transition period it is an issue. But I think once you're kind of established on it, it's probably not needed anymore, with the
yeah,
exception.
they like mysteriously go away, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just that adaptation and the shifts, the physiologic shifts in your body.
I'm curious, did you ever get, since you're a cardiac surgeon, did you ever get pushback? Do you get pushback from your colleagues?
Yes, yeah. Most of them think I'm. So the whole low carb thing, I think, is becoming much better accepted, although it's still nowhere near standard. But there are a number of my colleagues that kind of low carb as well. The carnivore thing is still seen as a whole sort of another level. But even with that, so part of what I've done is really you know, dove deep into the literature and the science behind all this. And you know, part of my involvement with MeatRx is curating the research section of the site. So I would say I'm pretty familiar with the research, and you know, I've read all the books, and I listen to podcasts nonstop, and you know, learn from everyone I can in the space. And I'm quite comfortable at this point saying that the science behind carnivore, while not abundant, it's solid. And I think the science that would lead people to question carnivore is very flawed. So you know, the concern about meat consumption leading to heart disease, meat consumption leading to cancer, is all very flawed, and I don't think there's really any merit to any of that. So I'm quite comfortable, both scientifically, you know, recommending this way of eating, and obviously I've had great personal success, as has, you know, the now thousands and thousands of people in this space that, you know, are in all the various communities. I think I'm quite comfortable as a physician recommending it to others at this point.
Thank you for that, doctor. Thank you for that. That's so appreciated to hear that from you. And if someone was to ask you, you know, on the street, so why do you think so many people have heart disease now? What would you say?
I would say it's because of our diets, which is the first thing we need to realize. It's not because we're lacking some medication. You know, the way to fix this is with diet. And when you look at the diet, I think the two most damaging things we consume are sugar. And the realization there is that all carbs we eat break down to sugar. Our body can't differentiate a good carb from a bad carb. And then the fake oils, the vegetable oils and the seed oils, again, are something that we as humans only started consuming 50 or 60 or, you know, at the most 80 years ago. We have absolutely zero proof that they are safe to consume. And I think there's many reason to question whether, you know, they are compatible with our bodies. And honestly, I think they're not. So what I tell people is, you know, you don't have to go carnivore. But I think if you want to avoid heart disease, my two recommendations are minimize the carbs and avoid vegetable and seed oils. So you're left with whole animal products and you're left with whole plant products. And then I just say to them, I think nutritionally, it's easier to get what you need with animal products and plant products. And it's impossible to get all the nutrition you need from exclusively plant products. So I have friends who are, you know, whole food, plant-based vegans, and they all have to take supplements. And I say, if you want to do that, that's fine. I find it much easier to eat meat, and I don't need any supplements, and go on with my life.
Simple, true, and succinct.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell your patients this?
I am. You know, the difficulty is that, you know, as a cardiac surgeon, I have limited, you know, I kind of see the patient. They already have advanced heart disease when they come to me. I operate on them. I get them through the operation. And for the most part, I then pass them back to their primary care physicians and their cardiologists. So, you know, I certainly have started to talk to them about this, but oftentimes they then go back to their cardiologist and their primary care physicians who, you know, I don't know necessarily that they speak against low carb or carnivore. they just don't even think about nutrition to start with. So, you know, the message just becomes, well, take your medications and, you know, take your insulin and, you know, keep your blood sugar under control with your insulin, but don't, you know, they don't think about the low carb, you know, if you don't eat the carbs in the first place, you don't have to take the insulin. It just doesn't enter the mind of most physicians, unfortunately. So that's the unfortunate reality. So there, you know, no one's ever, I haven't gotten in trouble and no one's ever reported me for, you know, recommending low carb, but it oftentimes doesn't get traction just because there's no support for it.
Yeah, so it's so valuable that you're able to, that you had this experience and your position and what you do for a living. It just adds so much value to people who are on this journey. So thank you so much for sharing this and for being so active with getting information out and curating information. You know, what you're sharing about cholesterol and about health markers is so valuable, I think, for people on the carnivore diet, because even though they're having such great results with their own health, sometimes they have a nagging doubt about their cholesterol and they get a lot of feedback from physicians about their cholesterol and about heart disease. So I really want to thank you for that. It's huge.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I'm hopeful that, you know, the MeatRx, you know, can be a platform that people are going to be able to go to reassure themselves, because there are, like I said, a lot of naysayers, and it certainly isn't standard within the medical community. So we need communities like this to be able to reassure those people.
Yeah. Thanks, Doctor.
All right. Thank you for having me on, Brooke.
Yeah, I hope to meet you in the real world soon. That'd be
Yes.
great. Okay, thanks again.
Bye.
Bye now.